Hey guys, welcome back to the Pausing Porn podcast. I'm Mark, and today we're tackling a question that everyone has asked themselves over and over again in their recovery from pornography. Why do I keep watching porn even when I promised myself I wouldn't? If you've had that cycle of saying never again, only to fall back into the same compulsive behavior the very next day or even the next hour, you're not alone. In this episode, we'll break down the science behind this pattern, look at why willpower is not enough, and I'll give you something practical you can take away and apply today. Let's start with an eye-opening quote that hit me hard in my recovery, coming from Albert Einstein himself. It's one of those quotes you've probably heard before, but it really hits home when it comes to porn addiction. Einstein once said, "Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results." Take a moment and think about that in relation to your own personal recovery. How many times have you tried to stop watching porn by just saying, "This time I'll be stronger," or told yourself, "This time will be different," even though you haven't made any material changes to your approach in your recovery? That's the insanity Einstein was talking about. Repeating the same actions, expecting change, but never actually changing the system around you. It hits hard, doesn't it? Now, for those of you that fit the description, I'm not calling you insane, but I'm using this quote as an eye opener. Like, imagine this in context to other areas of your life for a second. Imagine every time you bake something in the oven, you didn't use an oven mitt. Each time you reached in, you ended up burning yourself. Any reasonable person would stop after the first time. Just like kids do when they touch something hot, they learn to not do that again. But in porn recovery, it doesn't always work that way. We keep reaching back into the oven day after day, getting burned again and again, and telling ourselves this time will be different when nothing has changed. The truth is, if we want things to change, we need to pause and reflect. Why did we get burned in the first place? And what can we do differently so this doesn't happen again? That's the key to breaking the cycle. Porn hijacks your dopamine system, and here's how it plays out. Every time you watch, your brain releases dopamine. I want to remind you that dopamine isn't just about pleasure, it's about anticipation. Dopamine is what gives you that pull towards something before you even get there. Over time, your brain starts linking everyday situations like stress after work, feeling lonely, feeling bored on a Saturday night with the promise of porn. Once that link is built, those cues act like a switch. They activate your craving system before you're even conscious of it. That's why sometimes you can feel like you're already halfway down the path before you even realize what's going on. So when you say, "I don't want to watch porn ever again," your rational brain might be on board, but your habit brain, the part wired by repetition, is already firing off urges because it's been trained to expect a reward. That's why it feels like your actions and your intentions are out of sync. It's not because you're weak or broken, guys. It's because your brain has been rewired by repetition. Here's the good part about all this. Even though every relapse strengthens that wiring, every time you sit through an urge without giving in, you're slowly teaching your brain a new pattern. This rewiring doesn't happen instantly, just as your compulsive porn use didn't happen all in one day. But through consistent behavior sitting through these urges, you rewire your brain every single time. That's why I like to think of urges differently. A lot of us fear urges. I used to be terrified of urges because all they represent was a possibility of relapse and the desire to go back to pornography, which is what I didn't want. What if you change your mindset on urges, though? What if urges are not to be feared, but to be looked at as an opportunity? Think of it. Every urge you sit through is an opportunity to rewire your brain. When I started implementing this mindset shift, I went from playing defensively in my recovery to offensively. Urges were no longer a thing to be feared. I looked at them as an opportunity to create real change and start rewiring my brain on the spot. A lot of you have been using willpower as your sole strategy to overcome pornography. Here is why willpower has not worked for you. Think of willpower like the battery on your phone. When you wake up, it's fully charged, but as you go through the day, it gets drained. Every stressful email, every tough decision, any argument with your partner, every moment you resist temptation, this takes a little bit out of that battery. Research shows it's usually strongest in the morning and gets weaker as the day goes on. That's why it could feel easy to say no at 9 a.m., but almost impossible at 11 p.m. when you're exhausted. Things like stress, fatigue, decision overload, these drain it even faster. It's not that you're weak, it's that your brain literally has less energy to keep fighting. So if your whole strategy is just try harder, you're actually setting yourself up for failure. You're fighting a battle that gets harder every single hour of the day. This is why recovery isn't about being tougher, guys. It's about being smarter. It's about building systems and habits that support you. These are the systems that take the pressure off of willpower. So you don't have to be in a constant fight, a constant tooth and nail grit match against yourself. Real recovery comes when you stop depending on grit alone and start designing your life as you really want to live it. For years, I lived out a recovery based around willpower. Willpower was my sole strategy. And that's why I also lived exactly by Einstein's definition of insanity, what I talked on earlier. I expected different results without putting in any change in the process. I would live in this cycle of relapse, guilt, shame. I'd promise myself that was the last time. I would use willpower again, and then I would relapse all over again and start it over. When I reflect on this time, part of the reason I would continue on this cycle without putting in any material changes and expecting different results is that I lacked knowledge on my recovery. I didn't understand the science behind why I was watching porn or the reason I kept going back to it. It just felt to me that I wasn't strong enough at the time and I had to get stronger. Another reason is that it's very difficult. It's not easy when you're in the thick of it, when you're binging frequently, when you're living in shame. It's not easy to take a moment, sit down with yourself, and reflect on your life. It's so much easier to put your head in the sand, not look what's going on, and just tell yourself next time's going to be different. I'm going to try harder next time. But that doesn't work, guys. I'm going to tell you firsthand experience, it does not work. I did this for years. When I actually started making progress, this is when I sat down after relapse, or even when I was making good progress in my recovery. Take time in your day, sit down with yourself, and look at your life. Look what you're doing right, what's working for you, and look at things that you might need to change. Instead of just saying that you're going to do better next time, create a plan on how you're going to do better next time. This was a huge reason as to why I stayed stuck watching porn for so long with little results in my actual recovery. If you want change in an outcome, you need to feed that change. If you've been repeating the same strategy over and over and it hasn't been working, that doesn't mean you're broken. It just means your approach needs to change. Recovery is about making small, consistent changes in the way you live and respond. Here's a quick exercise you could try right now while still listening. I want you to think of your last relapse and ask yourself, what was the situation and what led up to it? Write down the one thing you didn't change that made it easier for porn to win. This could have been keeping your phone in bed at night, staying up too late, isolating yourself. Now I want you to decide on one change that you're going to make today. Just one. It could be moving your phone charger out of the bedroom, scheduling time with a friend to hang out, or starting a night routine. Remember, guys, change happens one step at a time. You don't need to completely uproot your life drastically in one day and change everything about it. Because I've tried this multiple times. Those challenges that you see online, I've tried them. For me, they never worked. Because porn addiction recovery is about consistency. It would be very difficult to change everything about your life just in one day and live that out consistently going forward. So that's not what I'm going to encourage you to do. Instead, I want to encourage small, actionable change, something that you can do today and you can live out consistently going forward. So the next time you catch yourself wondering why you keep going back to porn, remember Einstein's words. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Recovery starts when you choose to do something different, guys. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Pausing Porn podcast. If this helped you, consider sharing it with someone else on the same journey, rating the podcast, or dropping a comment. I'll see you guys in the next episode.